Now, a problem I've seen with a lot of lighting tutorials in Blender is that they walk you through all the basic lighting object types and their settings, but they don't actually tell you how to use the lights. So in this video, we're going to be going through the absolute basics of lighting in Blender, and I'm going to include how to use the lights and some very basic lighting setups to get you started. So you can see here in the scene, I'm just going to get started here with the default cube. So if we take a look at our light settings over here in the light panel with an object selected. So first here, we have the option for a temperature. And what this allows you to do is to utilize kelvins to set the temperature of your light. So for example, if I was to set this something down to 30,000, you'll see here that we get a warmer light, almost like an incandescent light. Now, if you don't understand color temperatures, just look up a simple color temperature chart, and you can see how it ranges from warm candlelight all the way up to bright daylight. Now, the advantage of using temperature is that you can match your visual effects shots. Otherwise, I recommend turning this off and just focusing on the color tint, which just gives you complete creative control to input any color you want into your scene. Now, next up down here, we have the power level, which of course determines the power of our light. Now, they actually have a handy chart here in the Blender manual lighting settings that gives you some examples of the power number they have there and how that translates over to real world examples. Now below that, we have the exposure setting. So if I grab my light here, all this does is scale the power there. And you might be wondering why that's useful when you can just turn the power up and down. Let's take a look at this example here. I have two lights in my scene. The front light here is set to 50 and the back light here is set to 500. If I decide that I have too much light in my scene and I'd like to reduce it by about half, I'd have to come in here and manually input those numbers on both of these. The problem isn't that big of a deal here because we only have two lights. But imagine if we had 20 lights in our scene. Well, a cool thing about exposure is that I can come here, copy exposure here as a new driver, and then I can go through and paste this across all of my lights. And now I have a really simple setup so that I can reduce the brightness of all my lights while still maintaining the original ratio of my lighting setups. I want to talk about lighting size next. So in general, the smaller your light source, the harsher your shadows will become. And the larger your light source, the softer your shadows will become. Which brings me back to this option up here, which is normalize. So with normalize ticked off, lights will behave like real world lights. And the fact that the bigger the light source, the brighter it is. And so if I turn this on, you can see here that the brightness maintains its consistency. However, the shadow sizes still change. Now let's take a look at each lighting object individually and some of their unique settings. Now, first of all, to add a light object to your scene, you can come up here to add light and choose any one of these four options. We're going to take a look at the point light first. So the point light here is a softball light floating in space that just emits lights in a 360-degree pattern all around the sphere. Let's look at a practical example of how we use point lights in a scene. Point lights are excellent for putting small splashes of color in very specific portions of your scene. You can see here that I have a bookcase, and what I've done is put point lights all up in this archway to give the illusion that there's some lamps up there kind of casting light down. You can see that if I turn just these 3 point lights off, how dark and much visibility we lose in the scene overall. So they're great for adding really controlled points of light within your scene. Now next up is the area light. This is a light that emits light from only one direction, which you can see by this line here. As I rotate this around, you can see how no light is emitting from behind it. For specific settings, we have the shape where we can choose from a square, a rectangle, a disc, or an ellipse to change the shape of the light that's being emitted. Now, the great thing about area lights is that they give us a lot of control over the direction and placement of our light. In fact, later in the video, when we go through the various lighting setups that I'm going to show you, we'll be using mostly area lights. So next up, we have spotlights, which emit in a cone-like radius. If you've ever seen the bat signal, that's essentially a spotlight shooting into the sky. So the great thing about spotlights is that we get a little bit of extra controls down here. But we also get the option for an angle here, which will change the size of the cone. And we can also blend that cone there as well. You can toggle whether you want that cone to be visible or not, just to make it easier to control. Now, the great thing about spotlights is that if I open up the shader menu here, and I come up here to another lighting setup I have, is spotlights make it super easy to emit textures in your scene. So you can see here I have an animated leaf texture, allowing me to create a lot of interest in our scene. It's as simple as plugging a texture coordinate UV into an image and just plugging that into the emission node. And that'll allow you to pretty much project any texture you want into your scene. Now, next up, we have the sun lamp, which will just emit infinite light in whatever direction it's pointing from the entire scene. So you can see here that I have it pointed back here at the window in my scene, and it's coming through as sunlight in that direction. Now, the only unique setting on the sunlight is the angle instead of a size. That's because it's representing the sun, but all you need to know is that the larger the angle is, the softer the shadows will be. However, if you set this angle too high, I've noticed it can create some glitches in the shadows, so be careful of that. And if you recall that chart I showed earlier, they actually have the various strengths and settings for the power on your sun based on the type of sky you're trying to do: clear, cloudy, overcast, or moonlight. So next up, let's focus on the world settings here. Now, the world settings enables us to put sky textures, HDRI, or just use an ambient color. They are not under the light settings. Instead, it's under the world settings under surface. So I'm going to turn off all the lights in my scene here. With this neutral gray, you can see that all I'm casting is just a neutral gray onto our scene, so not much light. If I was to bump this up to white, you could see how it would begin filling our entire scene with an ambient white. And of course, that would go for any other color we chose as well. Now, if I open my shader menu here, I can switch from object to world, and that'll take me into whatever current world setting we have here. You can see here right now that we have a background plugged into the color. So if I just take this color, drag it off, we're going to plug in a sky texture. Now, what this does is generate a simple sky texture that we can use to light our scene. If you're familiar with game dev engines like Unreal Engine, this is very common. So the nice thing about the sky texture is that you can put these settings in for any time of day and get a semi-realistic rendering for your scene. Now, the last resource I want to show you are HDRIs. These are high dynamic range images. And what they do is they contain a lot of information in the color data, allowing them to light your scenes. It also has the added benefit that you see in these examples here, that they will show up in the reflections, adding to the realism of your renders. Now, some people become overly reliant on these. I recommend you use an HDRI and then add lights for creative control. Let's take a look at how we would implement these. I'm going to drag this out here for an environment texture, and then I'm going to open and select an HDRI. Now, that website I showed earlier, Polyhaven, allows you to download many for free, so check that out as a resource. Now, you can see here how I've placed my scene inside of this garage. If I snap into my camera view here, you can see it's giving me some kind of general lighting around my scene. I usually set this around something to like 0.15, and then after that, I will add lights into my scene. This gives me a little bit of ambient lighting. I pull in some of the reflections, but I still get creative control over the look of my scene. Let's dive into some tips on how to actually light your scenes. We're going to come back to our default cube here. Now, I mentioned this before, but I want to reiterate it because it's one of the most important aspects of lighting. The size of your light will affect the shadows on your object. So if you want nice, soft, dreamlike, or gentle shadows, you want your object to be larger. However, if I scale this down, you can see that we get these harsh, rigid shadows, creating a much more chiseled and intimidating look. One really important thing when lighting your scene is to consider the distance of the light to the objects. So here I have a light 1 meter from my object. You can see as I bring it closer, it gets brighter, and as I move it away, it gets darker, as you'd probably expect. But one thing you might not know is that lighting actually has quite a fast fall off. It has an inverse square fall off, meaning that if I move this object just 2 meters away over here, I'm only at 1/4 the brightness that I was when I was 1 meter away. And to prove that, here's a light at 1 meter at 1/4 the brightness, and you can see they look exactly the same. Now, it's easy to think that because you're working in a 3D scene, everything you're doing has depth. But at the end of the day, when you render out an image or a video, you're providing a 2D image as your final result. So the way we convey depth is through how light wraps around our objects and the shadows that we have. And that's why it's really important to pay attention to your contrast ratio. So contrast ratio is measured in 1 to blank. So 1 to 1 means that we have no contrast in the scene. And this is where I see a lot of beginners make mistakes. They put a bunch of bright lights in their scene and they lose all the shape of their objects that they spent so much time working on. Let's look at a 1 to 2 contrast ratio. What this means is that the fill light and the key light are twice as bright as the other. And you can see here that we're already starting to get more shape. Now, 1 to 4 would be one being 4 times brighter than the others. And you can see we're starting to bring in a lot more dramatic shadows here. Or we can go all the way to 1 to 8, getting a little bit more of a stylized look and much deeper shadows. Now, if I were to take a look at my lights here, you can see that one is 75 power and the other is just 1/8 of that, giving us a 1/8 contrast ratio. Now, it can be overwhelming to be thinking about all these numbers. Really, all you need to take away from this is that not all your lights should be the same brightness and that you should allow shadows to wrap around your object to convey shape to the final render. Now, one mistake I see a lot of beginners make is that they just splash their scene with all white light, which just creates a sterile, boring render. You can use color to convey so much emotion. For example, here I want this cube to look intimidating. So I have a lot of dark red and ominous colors. Let's take a look here. You can see that for the background light, I've used a dark red. And for the splash moving across that background, I've used a light orange just to add a bit of color on top of that. And then for the background light here, the backlight, you can see here that I have a warm color as if it's emitting from the background onto our character. And then here for the key light, I actually have a blue. Now, the reason I chose blue here is that if I open this up and look at my color wheel, it's a complementary color to the oranges and reds I have in my scene. I know it's a complementary color because it's on the opposite side of the color wheel. So in general, if you choose colors on the opposite side of the color wheel, that's a very simple way to get colors that are going to work nicely together in your lighting scenes. Generally, you'll put one set of colors in the background and one set of colors in the foreground. Now, as I said, a lot of videos go through the various object lighting types and settings like we just did, but then they don't really cover light positions or lighting types that you actually use in your scene. Let's take a look at some of those. So first up, we have the key light. This is going to be your main light source. It defines the overall direction, contrast, and mood for whatever subject you're focusing on in your camera shot. Now, one important thing about the key light is that in general, you usually want the bright portion of that light to sit on whatever side of the frame has the most space. So in this example, my character is sitting on the left side of the frame looking out at the right. So we have more light and brightness over here. So the key light should come from this direction. Now, the key light can be positioned around the character like this, but in general, you're going to want it to be around a 45 to 25 degree angle on your character, either from the back or the front. Now, next up, let's take a look at the fill light. The fill light's purpose is to soften the light and lift the shadows created by the key light. So because of that, it's usually going to sit opposite of your key light. So you can see here, I have the key light on the right side over here, and on the opposite side, I have the fill light to fill in some of those shadows. It's important to know that the fill light is almost always going to be less bright than your key light. So it's just there to soften the shadows, but not completely remove them. Now, next up is the backlight or the rim light. And this is going to be placed behind your subject. Generally, it looks best when it's at a slight high angle and pointed down as opposed to just being flat, because that way we get some shape over the top of the head. Now, the purpose of the backlight or rim light is to create an edge highlight that separates the subject from the background. This is one I see beginners make a mistake on a lot. They don't separate their object from the background and everything just ends up kind of bleeding together. Now, next up, we have a light here called the background light. Now, this can be a variety of lights in the background. In this case, we only have one, but these are essentially to light the background and help create some separation from the character. Lastly, we have the motivated light. So this is not necessarily a fixture type, it's more of a concept. And what it essentially means is that there's light in your scene that is justified by a believable source. And what this does is add a bit of realism to your scene by adding practicality from the lighting and making it feel like the light is coming from real sources and not just a bunch of artistic giant lights floating around the set. Now, this isn't a light, but I want to show you the concept of cards. So cards are used on real light sets to block pieces of the light and give you more control over where that light's going. So we can see here in this example that I have a lot of light spilling on the background here. It's making it a little bit brighter than I want. So I can actually put a card here into my scene and move this around and get a bit of control. So by putting this behind my character, I can control how much of that light is spilling off from these lights onto the background. Now here's the thing. What you want to do with a card is create a black material, turn the roughness to 1 and the IOR to 1. This will make it completely flat, and then you can control how strong that card is and how much light it blocks with the alpha. Furthermore, you can just toss it in front of the camera, because if you come to the object settings here and you come down to the shading and visibility, you can come under ray visibility and turn it off from the camera. This means you can just move it around your scene and kind of use it to creatively block light from getting places you don't want it to. Now I want to show you how you can use those lights to create various common lighting setups in Blender. First up is 3-point lighting, the most common. And what we have here is a key light off to the side of our character, a fill light to fill that out, and a backlight in the back to separate them from the background. Next up, we have what's called a Rembrandt, from the famous painter who utilized this lighting setup in a lot of his paintings. What this is just a key light that is about 45 degrees in front of our character off to the side here, and then a reflection card. This is the opposite of what we did before. Instead of using a black card, I just used a white card, and this creates a bounce light to bounce back onto our character. And you can see that's just placed opposite of our light. Next up is butterfly lighting, which is very common for models. And what this is a light directly above our character angled down towards the top of their face. And then just like Rembrandt, we have a reflector card, but this one's placed under our character's face, giving a nice, soft bounce back. This one's used for models a lot because it's soft and it also creates a reflection in the eyes with the reflector card down here. Next up is underlining, which is self-explanatory. It's a light that sits underneath our character. This is great for spooky, ominous, or intimidating characters. Next up is called split lighting. This is just a key light pointing directly at the side of our object's face. What this does is create a split with the shadows, giving us a really dramatic look. Next up is 2-point lighting, which is very similar to 3-point, just without the backlight. So what you do to compensate is you take the key light, you put it a little further up front, and then you move the fill light a little further to the back. So you can see that instead of being rotated like this, it's rotated like this so that we still get separation on our character from the background. And then lastly, we have silhouette lighting. This is great for creating an ominous figure or focusing on a subject. I use this in my short film just to show the grand scale of the sunset over the ocean with our character being a tiny silhouette. Now, I hope you found that helpful. Let me know what else you'd like to learn about lighting in the comments below. I feel like it's a subject that doesn't get tutorialized very much, and I love it, so I'd love to talk about it a bit more. And thank you for watching.